pull up a chair. These two techniques, tomato sucker pruning and container garlic growing, have been in my family for 40 years, passed down the same way most worthwhile things are. Somebody older showing somebody younger. My father taught me before I could see over the top of the garden fence, and his father taught him before that. Two things. Same two things every single spring for 40 years now. Not because we found them in a magazine, not because somebody on the radio told us to, because they work, and because nobody in this family has ever found a reason to stop. I think about that a lot these days. How many things get replaced every few years just because something newer came along, whether it worked better or not? These two never got replaced. They never needed to be. The first one is the tomatoes. Most people plant a tomato and let it do whatever it wants. They water it, maybe stake it, and hope. We don't hope. Every single spring, once that plant has put on its first real growth, usually once it's got 6 or 8 true leaves and has started branching, I walk the row and I take a knife to it. Not a big knife, just a clean one, sharp enough that it doesn't tear. And I'm looking for one thing. The little shoot that grows in the crook, what gardeners call the leaf axil, between the main stem and a branch. The old-timers around here called it a sucker, and that's the right word for it, because that's exactly what it does. It sucks the strength right out of the plant that should be going into fruit. This works especially well for indeterminate tomato varieties, your heirlooms, your beefsteaks, your brandywines, the kinds that keep growing and setting fruit all season long rather than ripening everything at once. Those are the plants that really reward this kind of attention. You let those suckers grow, and what you get is a tomato plant that looks impressive, tall, bushy, full of leaves, and produces maybe half what it should. All that energy the plant pulled up out of the soil, it spent growing more stem and more leaf instead of more fruit. I've watched neighbors get frustrated come August, wondering why their plants looked so healthy and gave them so little. 9 times out of 10, I'd walk over, lift a few leaves, and there'd be 6 or 7 suckers nobody ever pinched off, each one of them quietly stealing from the plant's one real job. So here's what we've done every spring, same as my father did. Once the plant is established, I go down the row and pinch every sucker while it's still small enough to take off with a thumbnail. You wait too long and you need the knife, and a bigger wound means a longer time for the plant to heal, and more chance of something getting in through that cut. Small and early every time. I leave the main stem alone and I leave the first 1 or 2 strong fruiting branches near the bottom. Those aren't suckers. Those are the structure of the plant. And you don't want to strip a tomato bare, but everything growing in those leaf axils gets removed all the way up the stem. And here's the part most people miss. You keep doing it. This isn't a once-a-season job. Every 6-7 days, all summer, I'm back down that row checking again. Because the plant doesn't stop trying to throw suckers just because you took the first round off. It'll keep trying right up until frost. There's a second piece to this that goes along with it. Once the plant starts setting fruit heavy in midsummer, I'll also pull the lower leaves. Anything touching the soil, anything yellowing. Keeps the air moving underneath the plant, keeps the leaves dry after rain, and dry leaves don't grow fungus. My father did this without ever once calling it anything scientific. He just said a wet leaf sitting against wet dirt is asking for trouble. And he was right, because that's exactly the kind of condition that invites early blight, septoria leaf spot, the fungal diseases that love humidity, and a wet leaf surface. 40 years later, I've never seen a reason to doubt him. You stay ahead of all of it, and the plant puts everything it has into the fruit that's already set, and the fruit's still coming. The difference by August isn't subtle. Same seed, same dirt, same rain. Twice the tomatoes on the prune plant. And they ripen earlier too, because the plant isn't wasting daylight building leaves it doesn't need. That's the first thing. Now the second, the garlic. This one my grandmother taught my mother, who taught me, and it hasn't changed one bit in all that time, because there was never anything wrong with it to begin with. We don't buy garlic. Haven't in longer than I can remember. 1 5-gallon bucket, that's the whole operation, and it gives us a full year's supply. Here's how it works. In the fall, after the first real cool nights, but before the ground goes hard, typically in zones 5 through 7, somewhere between October and November, I take that bucket, holes drilled in the bottom for drainage, nothing fancy. 4 or 5 holes is plenty, and I fill it most of the way with good soil mixed with a little compost. Then I take the biggest, healthiest cloves from this year's harvest, the ones with no soft spots, no blemishes, no papery skin coming loose, and I push each one down about 2 inches deep, pointed end up, a hand's width apart from the next one. A single bucket holds a dozen or more cloves comfortably, sometimes more if you're patient about spacing them even. Whether you're growing hardneck or softneck varieties, this bucket method works. Though if you're growing hardneck garlic, watch for scapes in early summer, those curling flower stalks, and snap them off so the plant puts its energy into the bulb instead. Then it sits. That's the part people don't believe. You just let it sit through the winter. Somewhere it'll get cold, but not freeze solid all the way through, against the side of the house or in an unheated shed where the wind doesn't get at it directly. The cold is doing the work. Garlic needs that chill. 4 to 6 weeks below 45 degrees is what it takes to tell it winter happen. The same as it would in the ground, the same as it's done every winter for longer than anyone's been keeping records. Come late winter, you'll see the first green shoots pushing up, thin as grass, and that's your sign it worked. Some years it's earlier than others. Depends entirely on how hard the winter ran, but it's never once failed to come up. Once the weather breaks for good in spring, that bucket comes out into full sun. And from there it's only water. Keep the soil from drying out completely, but never let it sit soggy either. Until early summer, when the leaves start yellowing and falling over. That's harvest, plain and simple. No guesswork to it once you've seen it happen a time or two. You pull the bulbs, brush off the loose dirt, and let them cure. Set them somewhere dry and shaded for 2-3 weeks. Never in direct sun, that toughens the skin wrong. That curing process is what gives them the shelf life. Done right, what you're left with is garlic that'll keep in a cool pantry, clear through the next planting, sometimes longer. And out of that harvest, you set aside your best cloves. Same as always, biggest and cleanest. And the whole cycle starts again in the same bucket. This fall, same bucket year after year. I think we're on our 3rd bucket now, only because the first 2 finally rusted through at the bottom. 1 bucket. No garden bed taken up. No bag of garlic going soft in the back of the refrigerator. No trip to the store wondering if what they're selling even still has the oils in it that make garlic worth growing in the first place. 2 things. Same 2 things. Every spring, 40 years running. Nobody in this family invented either one. They came down to us the way most worthwhile things do. Somebody older showing somebody younger. And nobody along the way ever found a reason to change what already worked. If your tomatoes have been giving you less than they should, or if you've been buying garlic every time you run out, try these this year. You don't need more than a knife, a bucket, and the patience to do the small thing every week, instead of the big thing once. I'll see you next time. Pull up a chair again soon.